Everybody, I'm Jack Canfield. I'm here with Reverend Chris Jackson of the Unity on the Bay Church, and we are going to be starting this formal broadcast in just about a couple of minutes. We're really glad you joined us. So if you're wondering if you were in the right place, you should probably now know that you are. We're excited to be sharing this with you. We're obviously regretting that we can't be together in person, but this is the times we find ourselves in, what someone called a pause in the life as the way we know it. But we also think that there's a higher purpose for everything. So we'll be exploring what that might be today with you as well. So welcome, welcome, welcome. You'll be muted out. There will be a chat if you want to enter in information to the chat. You can do that, chat with each other, and one of my staff will be on if you have any questions you want to ask. I do have 7 questions that have been submitted. We're going to limit the questioning to that. At least I believe that's what will happen. We'll see how the spontaneity spirit moves us. Maybe I will open up the chat and look at some other questions through DM. But we're basically planning this to be about just an hour, and really appreciate you taking your Saturday night. We're all cocooning and social distancing ourselves so that we can be not committing to being part of the problem of communicating what might be the coronavirus. I think that most of us are doing the precautionary things we're supposed to do. And I'm not going to talk too much about the health aspect of it tonight, although we'll talk about the relationship of your consciousness to your health. But we're really excited to have you here. We're going to start the formal broadcast now. This is being recorded. It will be made available to more members of your community. We'll probably post it on our Facebook page as well. So Chris, I'm going to turn this over to you. You can make some welcoming remarks and go ahead and introduce me. And so here we have Chris Jackson, I'm sorry.
Quite all right. Hey, Jack. First thing I want to do is thank you. We were, as many were, disappointed that it wasn't able to be an actual in-person event, but I have to applaud you and your team for stepping up to the plate and allowing this activity to happen tonight. I remember in that conversation with some of your people, the concern was how might we be able to ensure that the value of your message and your teaching and your presence can bring some comfort and some solace and some understanding to people as we are moving through this time of challenging crisis. And so really do appreciate all the cooperation that we received to make tonight possible. Thank you so much. We're very grateful.
Well, my pleasure. I really, we are rescheduling this, I believe, for November 7th. We'll verify that and let the community know. So I will be doing my normal how to get from where you are to where you want to be talk, and talking about signs from the universe, becoming the person you're meant to be. I think the title that we gave this, the signs from the universe, becoming the person you're meant to be, had no idea that we'd be getting this level of a sign from the universe called the coronavirus that would be literally going to challenge us to become the highest person we can be, to transcend the fear, to transcend, our, let's call it small ego self-interest that might be emerging right now as we feel tempted to clear out the grocery store with all the toilet paper, paper towels, and food that we can stock up. I think that there's a lot of things that emerge that are scary for people, but we'll address that as well. So do you want me to jump into this, Chris? Do you want to say anything else before we start?
Just a couple things I'd like to share. First of all, I'd like to take a moment just to sort of acknowledge the presence of the infinite in our midst. If we could just take a moment to pray ourselves in. I invite you, if it's possible, wherever you are right now, just to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. Take a deep and relaxing breath as together we come into this moment in the awareness that there is a phenomenal, infinite intelligence that is forever available to each and every one of us. Jack, you and I were just talking about that. To each and every one of us, and it's available to us right now. And sometimes as we make this journey through time and space, we are gifted with opportunities that make us keenly aware of those pockets within our own consciousness wherein we may not have fully accepted this understanding that there's a presence of good that is seeking to reveal itself to us, even in the most challenging of times. And tonight we come together open and receptive to allow this voice to speak to us from the inner recesses of our being and directly through the presence of you, Jack Canfield. And we are grateful to know that we are in the right place at the right time, engaged in the perfect activity, not only tonight, but always. And for this, we're grateful. And so it is. Amen. I'd also like to take just a moment to share a message. First of all, to reiterate what Jack said, that although we are not with you in person tonight, we have rescheduled the event thanks to the cooperation with Jack and his team for November 7th here in Miami, Florida at Temple Israel of Greater Miami. And you can go onto our website at unityonthebay.org to secure that if you don't already have them. And if you do, fear not, the work is done for when you'll be from one on updating for November. A quick message with members of our own immediate community today, just so you know that we've been praying about and discussing our desire to be as present as possible with all of you during this coronavirus pandemic. At the same time, model what we behavior that ensures the health and well-being of all of us. And so with this in mind, just today we made the decision to temporarily suspend our Sunday and Wednesday gatherings at Temple Israel, substituting Facebook Live programming on Sundays at 11:15 a.m. and on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Those are the times you would normally be with us in person. And this begins tomorrow at 11:15 a.m. and will continue through at least through Wednesday, March 25th. Our first Facebook Live event then will be tomorrow morning at 11:15. And it's going to be a conversation between myself and our Associate Minister, Reverend Juan Del Hierro, on a similar topic to what Jack will be discussing tonight, how we can respond in spiritually sound ways to this unprecedented event. And we'll also be fielding any questions you may have. So that's Facebook Live on the Unity Facebook Live program tomorrow. I want you to know, too, that the actions that we're taking are truly not being taken from a space of fear or trepidation, as with a storm or any other kind of natural event that may happen in life. We are just doing our part to sustain the health and well-being of each of you, whom we love truly and dearly. Now, Jack, even though you're right in front of us, I'm going to say that our speaker this evening is known as America's #1 success coach. He's a best-selling author, professional speaker, trainer, and entrepreneur. He's the founder and CEO of the Canfield Training Group, which teaches motivated individuals how to accelerate the achievement of their personal and professional goals. He's the co-author of, get this, more than 200 books. I didn't realize that until I read this. I was familiar with some of your titles, but not all of them. And has sold more than 500 million copies in 47 languages around the world. He was featured in the movie The Secret. He has appeared on more than 1,000 radio and television shows, including The Oprah Winfrey Show, The Today Show, Fox and Friends, Larry King Live, and the NBC Nightly News and CBS Evening News. Without further ado, I hand it over to you, Jack.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'm going to start with a cart full of cartoons. It's important that we all laugh. When we laugh, we secrete endorphins into our brain. Endorphins are a natural opiate. And endorphins also build our immune system. There's actually research that was done by a university, I believe it was Harvard, where they had people watch a comedy show for an hour. They took their blood test before and after that hour. They found that all the immunofactors went up. So as we go through this time of challenge, it's important that we also take time to laugh. So just watch a couple of cartoons up on the screen here. It says, why science teachers should not be given playground duty. When Pinocchio talks to girls online. He says, honey, please just calm down. Let me explain. He says, I'm really starting to like the smell of cocaine. He says, well, it seems your weight is perfect. You just happen to be 11 feet too short. He says, what fits your busy schedule better, exercising 1 hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day? Applying for a job at IKEA. Says, make a chair and take a seat. You all know what emoticons are? These are called Botoxicons. Says you can name her whatever you like, but be sure it's something you can remember. You'll be using it as a security question answer for the rest of your life. Two older women talking about their computers. One says, my memory really sucks, Mildred, so I changed my password to incorrect. That way, when I log in with the wrong password, the computer will tell me your password is incorrect. And finally, one that relates to chicken soup for the soul. It's a mother chicken talking to her son in his bed with the flu, and she says, quit complaining and eat it. Number one, chicken soup is good for the flu, and number two, it's nobody we know. You know, I'm just thinking about, normally when I share those cartoons, there's always an audience and everybody laughs. And now I'm realizing because of the coronavirus, a lot of the evening shows are going to be not having live audiences because of the social distancing requirement. It's going to be very interesting for these comedians to be telling these jokes and not having anyone respond. It was just for me there. But anyway, I hope you got a little chuckle out of that. So as we move into this, I just want to kind of set a little context. This is a guy that you see there named Orrin Hudson, and he was someone who was having a wonderful breakfast with me down in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. And we were talking about success, and he said, you know, success is knowing that, he said, success is like knowing the combination to a lock. He said, if you know the combination to the lock, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be black or white, young or old, male or female. You could have had a high IQ, a low IQ, graduated from college, didn't graduate from college. It doesn't matter. If you know the combination, the lock has to open for you. And so there are universal principles, as you know, by being part of Unity on the Bay, that when you operate those principles, you get success. So we're going to look at this success and being who you are and being the best you and having success, abundance, prosperity, meaningful communication, greater health, all of those things in your life in relationship as we're dealing right now with the coronavirus. I often ask people, would you rather take the short route or the long route to success? And the answer is the short route, of course. I usually give people the right answer. And so I don't want you to be caught as we move through this coronavirus scare in the maze, but be able to go straight to the place you want to be, which is fearless, which is being able to at least handle whatever fears show up, being able to maintain your health, being able to maintain your sense of calm, your sense of peace, and be able to keep working toward the fulfillment of your goals at the same time. So the whole goal is to go further and faster with less struggle, and to go through this coronavirus scare with less struggle and less fear as well. Now, I have written a book called The Success Principles. There's 67 principles that always work in there. That's what I usually teach from. I'm going to share with you just a few principles from that book tonight that relate to this thing that we're focusing on. So success principle number one says, take 100% responsibility for your life and your results. Reverend Chris and I were talking about, right before we got on the phone, we were talking about A Course in Miracles and how one of the things that it talks about is taking 100% responsibility for your life. You realize whatever you're experiencing, both in terms of your emotions, your physical health, your physical pain or lack of pain, all the things that you're experiencing in your life that you are either creating or allowing to happen, mostly creating by the thoughts you think. And so we're going to look at that in terms of what are the thoughts that we need to be thinking right now. And I always tell people to act as if you are already experiencing the things you want, and act as if you are 100% responsible for everything in your life. So what would that look like? Take 100% responsibility. So whatever comes up for you in the next couple of months, don't be blaming, don't be complaining, don't be making excuses, but actually ask yourself the question, how am I creating? Am I creating fear? Am I creating distance? Am I creating panic? Am I creating unhealthiness in my body? Am I creating not getting sleep? Whatever it might be, ask yourself the question so that you're acting as if you are 100%. Notice it doesn't say 99% responsible. I often say to people, how would you like to be married to someone who is 99% committed to monogamy? most people would not want to do that because you'd always be wondering, is the day the day? Are they going to cheat on me, whatever? So this 100% commitment as we go through these next several months, hopefully that's all it is. It could be longer, but we think that's what the main focus of this curve is going to be, is that you take 100% responsibility for your experience and everything you're experiencing internally and around you as well. Now, there's a formula that some of you know because you've read my books or watched my videos, but for those of you who haven't, it's E plus R equals O. And what it stands for is there's an event plus a response, and that equals an outcome. And the outcomes are the things that you're experiencing right now. And what happens when we don't get the outcomes we want, health, wealth, relationship fulfillment, good sex, you know, fun, recreation time, whatever it might be that we want, we often blame the event. Instead of, you know, changing our response, which would make sense, 2 plus 2 equals 4. If you're not getting 4, don't blame the event, don't blame your husband, don't blame the government, don't blame the president, don't blame your doctor, don't blame the coronavirus, but ask yourself, what do I need to do to change my behavior instead of blaming? Because when you're blaming, you're in a powerless situation. So the only power you have is to change your response. And we're going to look at what are the healthy responses to this coronavirus scare, and also anything else in your life that you want to relate this to, because that's where your power is. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how to respond to anxiety, fear, and panic. We've got the fear of the coronavirus outbreak. We see that all the hand sanitizers have been cleared out of pretty much any store you want to go to right now. If you go to Amazon.com, it says, you know, we're out of stock. It's probably going to be that way for a while. And we're also have economic fears. You know, what if your job depends on travel? Like a lot of you are you're in Miami if you're watching this, and there's the cruises that come in and out, the hotels that support all that, the spring breaks that are supposed to be happening soon, or there may not be students coming to the beaches, whatever. The point being, there's economic fears that we have. We have election fears, whatever fears you might have about the Russians controlling our, you know, having input on our elections, whether you're voting for Trump or voting for whoever the nominee. It looks like Joe Biden's going to be for the Democrats. We might have fear of the other party, you know, that kind of fear. There's also fear of natural disasters. You in Florida have dealt with, you know, the hurricanes. We in California have dealt with the fires. Just recently in Nashville, we've had the tornadoes, we have floods, we have the volcano that just killed a lot of people in New Zealand. So there's fears about those kind of things as well. Now, I love the fear definition in what the Merriam-Webster Dictionary says: a strong, unpleasant feeling that you experience in your body caused by being aware of danger, or, and I think this is the more important part, expecting something displeasing to happen. So fear, in order to have fear, you have to go into the future and imagine something that hasn't happened yet, and imagine that it's happening or it's going to happen. And then you get to feel in your body what you would feel if it was really happening, because your body can't tell the difference between a very strongly imagined event and a real event. And so we're going to take a look at that. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about some information that I learned recently. And I've known all these things all along, but someone really summed it up a couple of days ago on the Today Show. It was a psychiatrist from New York. She talked about the 5 M's. She called it the 4 M's. I've expanded it with 1 M. That one of the ways to stay present and to stay out of fear is to practice mindfulness. You all probably know what mindfulness is. It's you stop, you take a breath, you disengage from whatever activities you're engaging in, and you just basically scan your body and you realize what's going on. Am I breathing deeply? Am I feeling pressure in my legs? Do I need to uncross my legs? Do I need to get up and walk around? Am I touching my face? This is something we're told not to do now, not to be touching things and touching our mouth or touching our nose or touching our eyes. Am I remembering to use sanitizers? Am I remembering when I go to the gas station to, perhaps in my gas station, they now have these little Purell dispensers, so you can basically use the gas pump, and then you can clean your hands off and get rid of anything that might be on that gas pump that someone else left there. So all these things that we're being told to do, all the precautions, are we in fact taking this to start becoming aware of things that were out of our awareness, like touching our face, like touching things without thinking about, is this going to be something that's going to cause a problem? Are we social distancing? You're staying 3 to 6 feet away. 6 feet is what we're told. They say if you go to a bar or a party, 3 feet, unless someone looks like they have symptoms, is a good thing to do. But mindfulness. The second thing is meditation. To disengage from the world long enough to actually meditate and to get in touch with what am I thinking? Are my thoughts lifting me up or taking me down? Am I feeling happy or not? If I'm not feeling happy, peaceful, calm, then I'm thinking thoughts that are creating that. And so we have to be paying attention to that. Movement. Whenever we're moving our body, when we move, when we dance, when we do yoga, when we exercise, when we run, when we're just getting up and playing with our children, whatever, movement actually brings us into the present moment. This is why a lot of the, putting on music and dancing. And also another M related to that is music. Are you listening to uplifting music? If you're listening to the news all day long and checking CNN every 5 minutes for the latest update on the virus or the economy or whatever, what happens is you're constantly hitting up against things that are probably going to be disruptive and things that cause you to not feel so good. So can we create a playlist of uplifting music? Like in my trainings, I have playlists of 50, 60 songs that all have uplifting lyrics, songs like Celebration and Let's Get This Party Started, and songs we use when we do the hug process, which we're not going to be doing for a while. But the point being, there's a lot of uplifting music. You don't want to be listening to a lot of negative music right now as well. Number 3 or 4 rather is mastery. Anytime you're doing something you're good at, you're feeling good. So if you're good at playing the piano, play the piano. If you're good at playing the guitar, play the guitar. If you're good at writing poetry, write some poetry. If you're good at playing ping pong with your kids, play ping pong. Whatever it is, whenever you're doing something good, you're going to be in a good mood. And also, if you're working on improving giving a speech, improving your writing, practicing your writing, journaling, whatever it might be, that's going to uplift you. I remember I was up in Canada about 10 years ago, and I was doing a Canadian morning TV show, kind of like The View here in America. And there was a woman in the audience that asked a question. And she said, I haven't been happy for 5 years. What would you suggest? And I said, well, what happened 5 years ago? And she said, well, that's when my husband died. And I said, well, what did you used to do before your husband died that you're not doing now? And she said, well, I used to play the piano. I used to paint. I used to garden. I used to do some volunteer work. I'm not doing any of that now. And I said, well, let me make a suggestion. Go home and start playing the piano. Get your paints out or go to the art store and get some paints and start gardening again. And send me an email a month from now. And I gave her my email address. And a month later, I got an email that said, I am happy again. So we know that one of the things that creates happiness is doing things that make you happy. In my seminars, I often ask people to make I call it an anti-depression list, 20 things I love to do. And whatever those are, maybe it's listening to Bob Dylan songs or John Denver songs or, Billie Eilish songs, whatever it is. What you want to do is make a list of things that when you do them, you are happy. And then if you find yourself in a not happy mood, you can read your list, put it on your cell phone, put it on your refrigerator where you often go when you're not happy to eat things you don't need to eat, which are not good. Right now, by the way, we know that sugar is one of the main things that reduces your immune system. So you want to cut out all sugar in your life, which I know for a lot of you is a real challenge. But we find that if you can go 7 days without sugar, the craving for it absolutely stops. So anyway, start doing things that you're good at and fill your time with that. And then final M is meaningful connection. Make sure you're connecting with people in a meaningful, deep, intimate way. My wife gets on the phone every morning and calls her sister, calls 2 or 3 of her friends, and they spend anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes just connecting in a deep, intimate, transparent way. Now, you may not be doing as much face-to-face, but that's why we have FaceTime, we have Zoom calls, we have Skype, we have many ways that we can connect with each other. So don't let yourself get isolated. Social isolation is different than social distancing. So make sure, and also be compassionate and reach out to people who you know might be suffering a little bit of isolation as we go through this next period of time. So fear is a big, they call it the mind killer. And what I like to say is let's go back a slide here. It's false evidence appearing real. You've probably all heard this already, that false evidence or fantasized experiences, things you're imagining in your mind, like there's not going to be any food, I'm going to get sick, I'm going to not be able to go to my work, I'm going to lose my job, there won't be any money, all those things that we worry about. But it's you creating images in the future, because right this very moment, as you watch this, more than likely 99.9% of you still have a job, you have food in the refrigerator and in your pantry, you're not sick, you've got lots of friends that you can call on and people that will help you, you're part of a church community that's going to create ways of reaching out to each other and networking and supporting each other. I'm sure that's the case. And so make sure that you stay in the present moment rather than going into the future and creating negative images. What happens when you get afraid is you stimulate a part of your brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala is in the back part of your brain there, the back toward the middle. And it basically hijacks the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is where your rational thinking takes place. It's where your creative thinking takes place. And it's where your spiritual thinking takes place, or your spiritual input, if you will. It's the third eye, if you think about it in terms of Eastern terms. And so basically, you don't want to hijack your prefrontal cortex. So we're going to talk about some ways to not allow that to happen. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with EFT tapping. I'm going to do a meditation visualization exercise for you before the hour's over. And it's going to include EFT tapping. We're going to do a thing called echo meditation, which was developed by Dawson Church, who is an EFT specialist, but it includes some work from HEARTMATH, Doc Childress HEARTMATH work, where we do something we call, what is the word for that? I think it's on my next slide. Here we go. Quick coherence work. And so we'll be learning to breathe into our heart, through our heart, after we do a little tapping. I'll teach you the tapping points. We'll come back to this slide later. And so basically we'll tap, we'll do the quick coherence breathing. We'll focus on building love vibration in all of our cells. So that's how we'll basically give you a technique, which I'll post on my website, and also maybe will get posted on your church's Facebook page, etc., to allow yourself to disappear fear whenever it shows up. But first, to realize that fear is self-created. It's not being created by that which is outside of you. That's the environment. That's the event. It's your response to it by imagining something bad happening. So let's just look at a couple other things with E plus R equals O. Another response to events is blaming. We can blame the government, we can blame the economy, we can blame the president. A lot of people are blaming, a lot of people are blaming the president because we didn't start testing soon enough. We didn't order tests soon enough. President's blaming the Congress, blaming Barack Obama for some of the things that they stopped. And, it's waste of time. It is what it is right now. And so spending any time blaming anything for anybody right now is not what you want to do. It's all an ineffective response to the way things are that keep you powerless. So we want to give up blaming. As I said, they're all things outside of you. Teddy Roosevelt said, if you could kick the person in the pants responsible for most of your trouble, you wouldn't sit for a month. Think about that. It's so true. And Abraham Lincoln said, don't believe everything you read on the internet just because there's a picture with a quote next to it. So anyway, don't be blaming anybody. Now, there are only 3 responses you have any control over: your behavior. So right now we're being asked to do some new behaviors, to sanitize, to do social distancing, to get 8 hours of sleep, to drink more water, to up-level our nutrition, to stop drinking, things like Cokes and alcohol and stuff. It's going to lower your immune system. There are thoughts. What thoughts are you having right now about all of this? And then there are the images that you bring up in your head. So I want to focus on thoughts for just a minute and show you how powerful your thoughts really are. So we have to harness the power of our thoughts more than ever right now. Now I'm going to show you a little exercise to show you how powerful your thoughts are. I want you to take one of your hands, and if you look right at the bottom of your hand where I've got that arrow on the slide, there's a little line that goes across. You all should have that line right there. and looks like a little wrinkle at the bottom of your palm. What I'd like you to do is to look at that line, and then on your other hand, look at the same, find that same line, and then put one hand right on top of the other with the precision of a plastic surgeon. And once you have that, I want you to just roll your hands up like this. And if you're like most people, you're going to find that one of your hands, in my case, it's my left hand, is slightly longer than your other hand. Most of you that have tried on shoes in the past know that one of your feet is slightly longer or bigger or wider than your other one. We're not balanced that way in life. Now, if in fact you have a shorter hand there, I want you to put it in front of your face about 12 to 18 inches. If they're the exact same length, don't worry about it. Take either hand and put it in front of your face about 12 to 18 inches. And what we're going to have you do right now is I'm going to have you say to this hand out loud, grow longer 6 times. So we're going to do that in unison. I'm going to start and you join me here. I know it sounds weird, but we're going to do it and you're going to see what happens. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Grow longer, 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 grow longer. Now, take both of your hands again, line those lines up just like you did last time, and roll up your hands and see what happens. Now, in my case, my right hand is actually a little longer than my left hand was. Just notice if that's the case for you. And if it is, what you've just proven to yourself is that your thoughts, your intentions can actually have an impact on your body. So if you're thinking thoughts like, I hope I don't get sick, and we all know that the subconscious mind doesn't listen to negatives. So if you say, I hope I don't get sick, your subconscious hears, I hope I get sick. And so you basically want to say, I intend to stay healthy, happy, and fulfilled and prosperous during this period of time. And so we can give direction to our body to stay healthy, to be relaxed, to have a strong immune system, etc. It's very, very critical that we do that. So I want you to remember your thoughts control your physical reality and the level of your success much more than you actually realize. Now, you probably know this because of the church that you're going to, or the spiritual center, if we don't want to call it a church, that you're going to, because this is what they teach. But it's important now, probably more than often, to remember that this is the case. So just to prove to you that this stuff works, I want you to, your hand would probably return to normal size after about a half hour because you're not thinking about it. But just go ahead and look at your hand, and we're going to say 6 times back to normal. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Back to normal, 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 back to normal. And if you want, you can line them up again, put those 2 little creases on your wrist and see what happens. And there you go. All right. So remember, every thought you think is sending out a message to yourself and others, and most importantly to yourself. But now in this time when there's so much panic, so much anxiety, so much fear in the space, you can almost feel it. I noticed on Tuesday, I was thinking of still coming to Florida. I was pretty convinced I was going to do that. Wednesday, I woke up and I had this very inner guidance kind of knowing that I shouldn't get on a plane and go to Florida. And it wasn't until Thursday that all the really statistics started to come out and the articles were getting written and people were canceling events. And in California, the governor said no events more than 250 people. We've had to cancel our own Breakthrough to Success training, which we were going to do March 25th for the next 3.5 days after that. And so what happens is that basically your thoughts are impacting the whole, the community, the whole universal field of energy, if you will. By Friday, which was yesterday, I could feel, my wife woke up too, she said, wow, something's different in the energy field. A lot of people I talked to felt that same thing. And we were just feeling a lot more fear out there. So every time you meditate and focus on light, focus on health, focus on God, focus on generosity and focus on compassion and for the highest good of all concerned, not just for yourself and your family, what happens is you are helping to ameliorate and to create a more coherent field, if you will, around the earth, as well as for yourself and in your local community. I know that Dr. Hagelin in The Secret talked about the idea that the power of a force field of an intention is the square of the number of people holding the same intention at the same time. So when you're holding an intention for everybody being healthy, for everybody being, that this virus passes through people, that people may indeed get sick. We know that's going to happen, but they don't die. They're going to stay healthy, that people are going to survive this. People are going to come out healthier than when they went in because they would have developed the antibodies for it. We also know, this is an interesting study from the Institute of the HEARTMATH, that they did a study where they had a 2-minute intervention on DNA. They literally had DNA on a stick, if you will, and like a glass rod. They took cells and basically got them to the place where there were just strands of DNA. And they said, okay, we want the strands of DNA to unravel. You know, there's telomeres at the end of the DNA, and we're all trying to keep ours longer these days so we can live longer. Anyway, they wanted to see if they could unwind the DNA strand. And so they just had people sit there and just be loving to the DNA, nothing happened. They had them send an intention to the DNA that it would unwind, nothing happened. Then they had them hold positive feelings of love and joy, and then intend that the DNA would unwind. And there was a 25% winding or unwinding, depending on which they were wanting to do, make it wind or unwind, of the DNA. So it's not intention without positive feelings, and positive feelings alone without the intention don't produce the impact you want. So when you're focusing on staying healthy, keeping your family healthy, keeping the world healthy, building up resistance to all this, etc., getting a vaccine sooner and so forth, you want to have a positive feeling as you visualize that, and also have that intention at the same time being held positive. There we go. The power of a force field created by an intention to square the number of people holding the same intention at the same time. Napoleon Hill had a wonderful quote. He said, every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And so we now have an adversity that carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. So the question becomes, what is that? And I'm going to think about share a couple of things with you. There's a friend of mine named Jack Canfield. We sometimes get confused together. He is a Buddhist meditation teacher, has a place called Spirit Rock up in Northern California. And he tells a story about when he was in Thailand studying Buddhism. He was a monk for a couple of years, American over there studying. And they were walking through a field wearing their robes, and they carried what they call alms bowls, alms meaning like giving a contribution. And they would basically put their bowl out, and people that were wanting to support these monks would give them food. Because in Thailand and places like that, almost everybody becomes a monk for several years before they return to a normal life. It's part of their spiritual pilgrimage, if you will. And they're walking through this field, to this rice field, and with their bowls. And the head monk that was teaching them basically saw a large rock off on one side of the field and said to the students, he said, do you think that rock is heavy? And these students are all young, bright, mostly Westerners, said, yes, it's a rock, it's heavy. And then he said, only if you pick it up. Now, this is a profound teaching. We are at a time where there's this thing called the coronavirus. There's these other things that are going to happen. We see that some of the primaries may be put off because, election, we don't even know how that's going to happen in November if this comes around again. But there's all kinds of issues that are going on out there. But they're only heavy if you pick them up and you hold them and you think about them and you obsess about them. In other words, what is. You can control what is with you by having positive feelings and positive intentions. And you still may get sick. I hope you don't. You can probably bring your immune system up to a very high level where you won't. And I'll talk about some physical things you can do in terms of nutrition as well. So I've been studying with a lot of people over the last couple of weeks on this. I'll share some of that with you in a minute. But the idea is when you're watching the news, that's a rock. When someone calls you up and says, Tom Hanks and his wife just got diagnosed with coronavirus, or, Justin Trudeau's wife just got diagnosed with coronavirus, that's a rock only if you pick it up. In other words, you can observe it without having to get attached to it. Can you watch the news and not become freaked out? If you can't yet, you may want to just not watch the news. But you want to eventually get to a place where you can watch it and just see it as information. It's just sounds, it's just pictures. It doesn't mean you have to pick it up and take it further. So I thought that was a very powerful little story. Another thing that Jack shared with us once was a story about during the siege of Leningrad during World War II. It was a very icy, cold winter for 3 winters in a row, and people were starving. They had very little food, and once a week, people would line up at what we would call a grocery store, but a place where they were distributing bread, and you might get one little chunk of bread, and they would take that back, and that would be the bread they would share with the family for the whole week. And this one young girl, he was watching a BBC special about this woman who was recounting this experience, saying that when she was a young girl, probably around 9 or 10, she went to the store to get the bread, her allocation of bread, which was what we might consider to be like a half a loaf or something, maybe a loaf, but it was small. And she gets the bread, she comes out, and because it's icy, she slips, the bread comes out of her hand and it falls into the mud. And she starts to cry uncontrollably. And this woman comes out, sees her, helps her up, takes her bread, breaks it in half, wraps that half in a piece of cloth and hands it to her. And she took that bread home. And as she's telling the story to this BBC documentarian, they pick up the camera and they walk down the hallway of her apartment in Leningrad. She walks into the kitchen, and there's a ceramic bowl sitting up on a shelf. She pulls it down and she pulls out this blue cloth, and she opens it up, and this is what the bread would have looked like if she'd gotten, that was her half a loaf. But what she did was she had a little piece of that bread left. And she said, that woman gave me the spirit to live through that 1.5 years that was left of that war. One act of kindness to a young 10-year-old girl gave her the spirit to live through that 1.5 years. So we all have the potential now to lift ourselves up and to actually be that person to our neighbors and to our friends, and to be the person that is the generous one, the compassionate one, etc. My wife Inga came home yesterday with a 40-pound bag of basmati rice. And I said, so are we starting to hoard rice? And she said, no. She said, basically, I realized some people in my meditation group are 81 years old. There's another woman with cancer that has difficulty leaving her house. And I realized I'm going to be making food for them over the next couple of weeks. And I wanted to get enough rice and vegetables and things that I can be doing that. And I teared up just knowing that that was the level of compassion that we were going to be playing from in our house. And so again, let's see if we can remember not to let the energy go back to the amygdala in our brain where the fear lives, and allow it to be coming from the prefrontal cortex where our spiritual generosity, compassion, and desire to be of service comes from. I want to remind you all about Byron Katie. Most of you know her work, the book Loving What Is. She talks about the 4 questions. If you start to get afraid of something like, oh my God, I might get this, ask yourself the 4 questions she teaches. Is it true? Well, I don't know. Is it absolutely true that I'm going to get sick, or someone I know is going to get sick, or I won't make through this, or I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to lose my apartment, or whatever? You can't absolutely know that. The only answer is no. Then the question is, how do I react when I believe that thought? Well, I get scared. I start hoarding. I start, I constrict. My breathing stops. Stuff's going on inside of you that you don't even know about because the cortisol is lowering your immune system, etc. And then basically ask, who would you be if you could not even think this thought? Who would it be without this thought? And the answer is, I'd be happy. I'd be joyful. I'd be at peace. I'd be at calm. And then turn the thought around. I'm going to have enough. I'm going to stay healthy. We're going to survive, whatever it might be. So remember to use the tools you have. Esther Hicks, who channels these beings called Abraham, if you remember, and I'm sure a lot of you have been studying Abraham, listening to the CDs. I belong to the CD of the Week Club. I listen to them in my car. And, the key message, nothing is more important than that you feel joy. Nothing's more important than I feel joy. And so if the thought is bringing you down, reach for a better feeling thought. What would be a thought that would make you joyful? Now, don't beat yourself up if you're thinking a negative thought. You know, give yourself permission, forgive yourself, you're human. If we were all perfect, we wouldn't be dealing with these issues, we wouldn't have to have a call. But at the same time, remember what you know. And if you're a friend of someone who's forgetting these things, that's what friends are for, is to remind each other to do these tools that we have when we're, you know, stressed out. Now, I did a little research with some of my holistic doctor friends, some of my nutritional friends, and a couple of things. If you're not aware of this, you probably are, but if you're not, I just want to recommend some things that everyone is saying the same stuff over and over. These patterns are emerging. So make sure you're taking vitamin C. I would recommend, you know, 3 milligrams, like 1 milligram, you know, like 1,000 milligrams rather, every, you know, 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night. If you're feeling a little like you're getting a little sick, you can up that. Make sure you take D3, vitamin D3, glutathione, probiotics, and there's a product called Intramax 2.0. You can order that from Amazon. I haven't seen any run on that. It has 451 nutrients in it. Every micronutrient, you know, minerals, trace minerals, vitamins, pretty much anything your body needs to stay healthy. One of the things that beats off ever getting it, or if you would get it, any virus, is heat. So what heats up your diet? Turmeric. Always add black pepper. Most of the pills that are out there combine black pepper and turmeric. We're eating a lot of Indian food right now because I just came back from a month in India at a health clinic. So timing for me turned out to be really well. Did a lot of detoxing for a month. But turmeric and black pepper, cayenne pepper. Cayenne, you know, you can sprinkle it on things. It raises your temperature. Sometimes it even makes your nose run and gets you a little hot, which is supposed to do. Anything, garlic also is a antibiotic and antiviral properties. Ginger, I drank a lot of ginger tea when I was over in India detoxing. So ginger tea, fresh ginger, you can, you know, scrape it like you do if you're grating cheese, and then just pour boiling water on it, let it sit for a while. Just drinking hot water in general, and hydrating. Recent information seems to be that if your throat is wet, you're less likely to inhale it all the way into your lungs, so that if your throat is dry, there's nothing to catch it on the way down. And then when you drink water, if there's anything in your throat, it goes down to your stomach, and the stomach acids will kill viruses and, you know, bacteria and things like that. Saunas, I have an infrared sauna. We've been doing that. Steam baths and exercise. Anytime you heat your body up and exercise, get yourself sweating. I remember John Gray was teaching me how to do a thing called bounce and shake, which is you just bounce and get your immune system working up. It gets your lymph system moving, etc. And he was telling me he learned this from a person in China, and he said, I noticed there's no obese people in this village. Why? He says, because we all do bounce and shake, where they just basically bounce. You don't leave the ground, you're just flexing your knees and bouncing. And he said, they did a study in China, and everyone that was over 100 years old that they studied had found some way to sweat, whether it was doing Tai Chi, working out in the fields, taking a steam bath, whatever it might be. So sweating's a good thing. Alkaline diet, which means lots of veggies, less fruit, no sugar. You know, get your protein where you get it. Would recommend, you know, going easy on the meats. But basically, an alkaline diet is really recommended. And I would say cook your vegetables right now. Maybe not the best time to be eating leafy greens if they're not washed well. If you're going to eat leafy greens, when you bring them home, any kind of vegetables, put them in the sink or put them in a big pot, add a few drops of Clorox to some water, let it sit for a little bit. That'll kill any virus, any bacteria that might be on it. Drink lots of water, as I said. And breathing exercises, deep breathing, pranayama as they call it. So if you breathe for the count of 6 in and the count of 6 out, just stop every hour, set your alarm on your smartphone, just breathing in, breathing out. That's very calming for you. It also revs up your immune system. And getting 8 hours of sleep. This is not the time to go sleep deprived. Your immune system works a lot better when you're getting that 8 hours of sleep. All right, I want to talk about turning a have to into a get to. You know, when I used to live in LA, Many of us are going to be having to social distance. Maybe we're going to be having to isolate ourselves and do quarantining of ourselves. But think of it, how can I turn a have to into a get to? When I used to live in LA, I would go down the 405 freeway and it would look like this. We used to call it the largest parking lot in the world. 6 lanes wide, as you can see there, and mostly you're seeing red lights, which means people's brake lights are on them today. And I created a game. I said, I've got to do this. So how can I make this fun? I created a game where, as I was driving down the freeway, if it was looked like this, my game was like golf, the lowest score wins. From when I left and got on the freeway to when I got off, how few times could I hit my brakes? So I would drive really, really slow, so I wouldn't have to hit the brake. But then if I left too much space between me and the car in front of me, someone would pull in front of me, I'd have to hit the brake. So it's constant kind of jockeying. That was really fun. If it was moving a lot faster, my game was how many cars can I pass? I want to get into the fastest lane because every time I'm passing one car, I'm usually passing 5 cars in the other lanes. That was a game to play. How many could I beat my high score? So what used to be a bummer turned into a fun game every time I was driving home. So what are some ways that you could turn some have-tos if you're staying at home more, you're working from home, etc. So what are these opportunities for growth? What are these seeds of a greater opportunity that we find in adversity that Napoleon Hill talked about? One is, I would encourage you to read. There's probably books you wanted to read that you haven't been reading. Journal writing. A lot of us claim we're going to do it. We never do it. You could update your vision board or your vision book. You could upgrade your goals. You could work on your exercise, your yoga, your spiritual practices. A lot of us say that we meditate every day. We say that we do yoga. We say that we read, spiritual books, but this would be a time to actually do it. Some of you have been threatening to write a book or write a blog or write a speech or whatever. It's the time to do that. If you're home alone and you can't get out, these are times to practice your instrument. I mentioned the Canada story about the woman starting to play the piano again. And maybe you want to update your website, but there's all kinds of things. That honey-do list you've put off forever. If you find yourself at home and you've got an extra time, don't sit there and bemoan the fact, use it to your advantage. If you haven't created the vision board, I would encourage you to do that. There's a woman named Cynthia Dodonna who created the vision board, and this is a vision board she created in one of my workshops. You'll notice down here on the left, it says traveler, couple, heart. Up here on the right is all this stuff about Greece. She wasn't married when she did this. This is 1 year later. She was married and had her honeymoon in Greece. And she claims it's all because of her vision board, doing her affirmations and her visualization every day. So I'm just going to say a couple more things, and I'm going to answer a couple of these questions real quick. I'm going to take you through a quick meditation that you can practice that will help you always stay calm. And if you're not calm, it will get you into being calm. So one of the things I teach is called the hour of power. Every morning, I want you to use the hour of power, 20 minutes of meditation. 20 minutes of meditation. That you can also include your visualization and your affirmations in that. You can include your gratitude exercise, your rampage of appreciation if you're into, Esther Hicks and the Abraham work. 20 minutes of reading, something uplifting, something inspiring, something of professional, will help you increase your, income, etc. Right now I'm reading 2 books, The Course in Miracles Experiment by Pam Grout. If you've ever tried to get through the Course in Miracles, you probably found it challenging. This is her take on each lesson. She's kind of made it much more available and fun and easy to do. And I find myself just turning the pages. I'm going to get through the whole thing in probably a couple of weeks, then go back and do each lesson again like you're supposed to. Also reading a book called The Miracle Morning, The Not So Obvious Secret Guaranteed to Transform Your Life Before 8 a.m. It's a wonderful book, very similar to The Hour of Power, a lot of research for the same things I'm suggesting. And then 20 minutes of exercise. We talked about the importance of getting your temperature up. I love this cartoon. It says, step 1, apply Miracle Cellulite Cream to problem areas. Step 2, run 10 miles. So make sure you get that exercise. And Jim Rohn said, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Robin Sharma said, success was created through the performance of a few small daily disciplines that stack up over time. to produce achievements far beyond anything you could ever plan for. So with that, let me very quickly address some of these questions that came in. I think I've addressed most of them, and I'll refer back to that. But there's a couple, I'll say a couple of new things for, and then we'll do this closing process that I promised you. So the first question is from someone named TM. She says, how do you move past fear to pursue your dreams, goals, or aspirations? I need to show up for my business, and I'm not. I beat myself up for it. Well, first of all, do not beat yourself up for anything. Just be gentle with yourself. You're human. You're not perfect yet. If you were perfect, you'd be the one leading this call or this Zoom webinar at the moment. So love yourself. You know, the key thing is love yourself. Know you're going to make mistakes, and just give yourself permission to be yourself. Secondly, as soon as you catch yourself doing that, the next thing you want to do. Let me just change the slide here so it matches what we're talking about here. Hold on. Oh, not where I wanted to go. I wanted to go to, well, doesn't matter. Go back a second. Oh, forget that. So just hang with me. So anyway, the way to get over the fear is to simply visualize being calm. Do the exercise I'm about to teach you. If you know tapping, do tapping. I'm going to teach you the tapping technique as part of this exercise I'm going to teach you. And then visualize yourself achieving the work that you're supposed to achieve at your job, at your business, whatever it might be. So when you're scared, when you're worrying simply will be called negative goal setting. You're focusing on the very thing you don't want to have happen. And so you simply have to use the law of replacement, which says, I'm going to shift my focus and intentionally focus on the thing that I want to be creating. And so you might want to put a couple of signs around on your refrigerator, on your bathroom mirror, on your computer, at your workstation, whatever, that says, focus on the positive. Visualize success now. Something like that to remind you, because we need to be reminded of what to do. Brittany writes, as I lean into the intelligence of the virus, I can't help but feel and know this is all supposed to be happening for the rearranging of Earth's consciousness. I'm curious what your take is on how viruses are the universe's way of sharing a genetic material update to humanity and or an understanding of their actual true purpose in our reality. And then Tina also wrote, there must be a bigger purpose to this global coronavirus pandemic. How do you see it? And what advice do you have for people to cope with it as everyone's life is affected one way or another? Talked about how I think you can cope with it. I think the purpose from my point of view is to raise our consciousness, to make us aware that we are in fact one humanity, that just because someone lives in China or Italy or Iran or New York or some other country, it doesn't mean we're not affected. You know, we are one human living organism. If we didn't know that before a couple of weeks ago, we should know that now. We are all connected by the internet, by our travel where we're breathing the same air in. I mean, you know, think about it. You're breathing in air that someone else breathed out just a little bit ago if you're in a room with more than one person. So we are constantly influencing each other. We are like cells. It's like every individual is a cell in this body called humanity. And so it's up to each of us to be aware of that and to know that what we do affects everyone else. And so, like, you know, one of the things they talk about social distancing is you may have a job where you're going to lose money because maybe you're a waiter and you only get paid when you work. But if you're going to work when you're sick because you're so afraid that you're going to not be able to pay the rent, you're getting the rest of the cells in this body of humanity potentially sick. And so we have to be thinking about the whole. It's like, you know, if I show you these fingers on the screen, they're separate. I wouldn't want to cut one of them off because they're all connected to my hand. We're all one. So I think that's what we're being asked to look at. I think we're being asked to become more conscious of how we do scare ourselves, how we tend to isolate, how we tend to, you know, xenophobia that comes up. Oh, it's the Chinese that caused it. It's the, you know, if we don't let people into the country, then we'll be okay because we're, you know, the best country on the planet and everyone else is less than. All those things are just illusions. And so I think we're being asked to see that. I think we're being asked to cooperate more. We're going to have to be doing things like, if I'm a landlord, perhaps forgiving someone their rent for a couple of months if they don't have a job. The government's already looking to do some things like that, where they're talking about, providing longer workman's comp, to provide money for individuals who lose their jobs because of the travel industry they're in, or because of the things that are affected by those kind of things. I think, we're applying for a small business association loan right now. They're threatening to make them zero interest. That hasn't happened yet. But, our cash flow is severely limited because of all the cancellations and postponements of live trainings we were doing. Fortunately, most people are just transferring to another date. We're going to do more online stuff, as I'm sure everyone is, just like your Unity on the Bay is going to be doing services online. So we have to be creative. I think it's going to call forth our creativity to get us to think out of the box, to get us to realize that we have more potential to serve each other, perhaps online, and that we can do that as well. But I do think there's a larger purpose, and I think we see a lot of it now. We may see more of it later. But I do think we're all being called to a higher expression of love. The main lesson I think we're all learning in life is to how to be more loving. And I'm working on a book that's talking about how to choose love, not fear. And who knew that I was going to get so much information to have to live through it and not just write about it theoretically. All right. Another question is, how do I act responsibly from the perspective of personal public well-being and spiritual principle? I think we addressed that. Not hoarding, staying calm, being part of the square of the intention. The more people are thinking positively and so forth. How do I know if I have a feeling of instinct or fear, or if it's just really fear? Is it the instinct? Is it my intuition speaking? Or is it a real warning? Some people talk about managed fear, where obviously there are things to be concerned about. There are things that could happen that are deleterious to our health, to our communities, to our economic system, etc. So we have to be rational. That's why we want our thoughts to be up in the prefrontal cortex of our brain. I think if you find yourself getting into fight or flight, we've seen people arguing over stuff in the grocery store, people screaming at each other, people, freaking out, that you're obviously in fear then. If you feel like running away, if you're starting to feel like, selfish, if you're starting to panic, if your breathing's going bad, you're experiencing panic attacks, anxiety, that's not rational. Rationally, we're all sitting here. So far, the statistics tell us that only about 2 to 4% of everyone that gets this will die. The average age of those people so far has been 81. And there are people that are over those ages that are surviving and doing well and have survived. And so, again, just stay with the facts. The CDC, World Health Organization, they're giving us good information. So be careful about the news. The news likes to fearmonger, keeps us feeling scared. So we turn to them for watching more news, which then they can sell us more advertisements. If we focus on the fear, it's a low vibration. Well, what should we focus on at this time? We talked about that. Focus on love, joy, peace. What we're going to be meditating on in just a minute. Someone said, if you had 3 to 5 words of inspiration to say to someone, what would they be? That's Beverly. I said, stay calm, breathe, keep your heart open. Everything is working out for the highest good. Just keep believing that thought, because it is. It always has been. The universe has your back. And it's often will give us lessons that we need to learn. I think we're in that phase right now. Let me guide you through an exercise. I think if I can get the right slide up here again. There we go. So as I said, I will post this both as a written exercise, and we'll see if we can get an audio version of it on the internet. I know we've gone an hour now, so stick with me for about another 6, 7 minutes, 8 minutes at the most, and we'll do this. Then I'll bring Reverend Jackson back on. We'll bring Chris back on. He'll have some closing words, I'm sure. And then we'll wrap this to a close. So I want to thank you all for being here so far. But what I'd like you to do is go ahead and close your eyes. If you're able to do that, you're willing to do that. Get into a comfortable position with your spine as straight as you can, wherever you might be sitting listening to this. And actually open your eyes again. I'm sorry, because I want to teach you something first. Because we're going to do, I was assuming all of you know what tapping is. You may not. Let me just find the diagram for this real quick. See if I have it here. Yeah. So just if you watch me on the screen and also look at this diagram, if you've not done tapping before, tapping just requires us to do a couple of things. We're all going to tap here and say, even while I may have fear about the coronavirus, I totally and unconditionally love myself just the way I am. We'll do that 3 times. Don't have to do it yet. But we'll be tapping on what we call the karate chop point. And then we'll say this fear, and if you have a specific fear, this fear of getting sick, this fear of coronavirus, whatever, you can just tap. You can say that. If you don't have a specific fear, you can just tap without it. Then we're going to tap on what we call the eyebrow point. You probably want to take off glasses. Just tap on the eyebrow point. I use 2 fingers. And again, we'll say this fear. Then I'll say the side of the eye. So right up next to the eye socket, again, with 2 fingers right there, you can do both sides or one side, doesn't really matter. And under the eye, like right between, like if you don't want to go in the eye, but just right under, you're tapping there. Again, you can do 2 or 1, 2 hands or 1. Then under the nose, right into that little V where your nose hits the lip, we're tapping there. And then on the chin point, which is right in that little cleft, like if you have a little indent in there, you're tapping right into there. And the collarbone point, you come down to where your collarbone is, come down about 1 inch and over 2 inches. You can tap there with 2 hands or 1 hand. You just tap all around. Tapping is very forgiving. Some people are actually even doing tapping by just imagining tapping the points and still getting the impact. And the final point is what we call the under the arm point. That's what says UA on the chart. If you are a woman, it's underneath your bra strap. If you're a man, just dig around till you find a little sore spot in there and you tap on that place. So these are places we're going to tap. We'll probably do 3 rounds of tapping, and that basically calms the nervous system, brings the energy out of the amygdala, which we talked about, up into the prefrontal cortex, where calm, rational, spiritual thoughts occur. So let's, with our eyes open, let's actually do that. So I'll take my glasses off. So let's start by just tapping here and saying, even though I may have a fear of, and then you can fill in the blank, I totally and unconditionally love myself. We'll do that 2 more times. Even though I have a fear of, I totally and unconditionally love myself. Even though I may have a fear of, I totally and unconditionally love myself. Then we're tapping on the top of the head. Again, you can say it out loud. If you have a fear, this fear of, fill in the blank. Then the eyebrow point, this fear of. Side of the eye, this fear of. Under the eye, this fear of. Under the nose. Under the chin. On the collarbone point. And under the arm. And we'll do that 2 more times. Top of the head, you can say this fear of. Eyebrow point, right where your 2 eyebrows end. If you have a unibrow, just kind of separate it. On the side, under the eye, under the nose, on the chin, collarbone point, under the arm, and top of the head, eyebrow point, side of the eye, under the eye, under the nose, on the chin, collarbone point, and then under the arm. Take a deep breath, let it out, close your eyes. With your eyes closed, just allow yourself to begin focusing on your breathing. And begin to breathe where you're inhaling for the count of 6, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhaling for the count of 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you continue that at your own pace, but counting to the count of 6. So you're deepening your breath in and you're deepening the breath out, and they're even in the amount of time as you breathe in and out. And say to yourself, I release any and all blocks to my inner peace. I release all tension in my body. I release anything in my past, present, or future that stands between me and inner peace. So I'll repeat that again and leave you time for to repeat it. So I say, I release any and all blocks to my inner peace. I release all tension in my body. I release anything in my past, present, or future that stands between me and inner peace. Now let your tongue rest loosely on the floor of your mouth. And feel your hands, feel your feet, feel the space inside your hands. Feel the space inside your feet. Feel the space inside your legs, inside your arms, inside your torso, inside your neck, inside your head. Feel the space inside your whole body. Picture a big empty space behind your eyes. And picture a big empty space between your eyebrows. And if any thoughts arise in your mind at any point during this meditation, just let them go. Just watch them drift away like clouds across the sky without any attachment. Continue to breathe slowly, 6 seconds per out breath, 6 seconds per in breath. You can count 6 silently each time you breathe in and each time you breathe out. And notice how relaxed your tongue is. And picture the big empty space behind your eyes. And keep your tongue relaxed. If you notice any physical sensations arising in your body, such as an ache or a pain or discomfort, just observe them. You don't have to do anything about them. Just keep your attention focused on your breath, counting 6 seconds in and 6 seconds out. Again, notice that big empty space behind your eyes. And now visualize the location in your chest where your physical heart is located. And as you continue to breathe in and out to the count of 6, imagine the air is coming in through your chest into your heart. And it's going out through your heart. Breathing in through your heart and out through your heart. Maintain a relaxed tongue, inhaling for 6, exhaling for 6. And now imagine you're standing in front of a large tree, a very solid, majestic tree. As you look at this tree, you notice how it's connected to the earth, deeply rooted into the earth. And you realize this tree has survived many winds, storms. It's lost its leaves every fall, regrown them in the spring. The tree is grounded, rooted, but it's also flexible, which allows it to bend in the wind without breaking. And realize that you too are like this tree. You are firmly rooted in the earth. You're protected. You're strong. You're flexible. And you can survive whatever comes your way. And you realize you've survived everything that's ever happened to you, or you wouldn't be here. You have a history of surviving, growing stronger, growing taller, growing in consciousness, in love, in awareness, wisdom. And just like that tree, you will be able to weather any storm that currently comes into your life. And imagine again your heart, where your physical heart is located. And imagine a beam of love pouring out through your heart toward a person or a place that you love. And imagine as you breathe out, that beam of love grows stronger, thicker, wider, more powerful. A beam of perhaps radiant gold or white light coming from your heart, emanating out to a person or a place that you love. As you continue to breathe in for the count of 6 and out for the count of 6. Noticing that empty space behind your eyes, the beam of love continuing to flow out. And now bring that beam of love back into your own body, into the area of your physical heart. And send that love to any part of your body that you feel may need it, may want it. And now take 3 deep 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out breaths. Do that 3 times. And then when you're ready, just slowly open your eyes and come back into the room. Look around the room, wherever you are. Find some object that you can focus on, bringing your presence fully back into the outer world as well as your inner world. And I'll simply end this, and I'll turn it over to Reverend Jackson in just a moment to say that I look forward to seeing you on November 7th, where you will be able to get a book signed and take a picture together and hopefully share a hug together by then. I look forward to that. I'm a big hugger, so I look forward to doing that with you. The promise I always make people is when you come to that seminar, I'm going to teach you some principles that can help you double your income, help you double your free time, increase the amount of balance in your life, and increase your emotional and spiritual fulfillment. And if you apply those principles, I promise you, you can do that in 3 years or less. Most of my students do it in 2 years or less. And just to give you one example, I worked with the RE/MAX office in Indiana. You probably all know who John Asraf is. It was his office. And we did a one-day seminar on these principles. And literally everyone in the office doubled or tripled their sales in under 2 years. 86% of the people did, rather. And the office itself doubled its sales and became $1 billion a year practice. So I love this cartoon. It said, accidentally listened to my motivation CDs backwards and became a failure. Please help. We don't want you to do that. I would encourage you, if you haven't read my book, The Success Principles, or the Success Principles Workbook, which is just coming out in the next week, you might want to get a hold of those. And if you do find yourself with a little more time on your hands, take yourself through both of those books. The workbook will give you actual things to do. The Success Principles book does as well, but the workbook is literally a workbook. And take yourself or you and a partner through that at the same time. You can get a whole bunch of free resources at jackcanfield.com. One of the things we're really excited about is that we now have this thing called Success TV. And we're on a whole bunch of platforms, and you can also access it through our website. Lots of shows where I'm interviewing people, shows where I'm just sharing things. It's really an amazing amount of, literally you could watch 40 hours of videos, and it's all free to you, so to support you during this time. So make sure you go there. So I want to say thank you very much, and ask Reverend Chris if you want to come back on screen here and say anything to close out. I'd love to have you do that.
Jack, I'm not sure if you can see me. I'm having a little difficulty with the screen here, but I just want to tell you, I think my biggest concern health-wise now has shifted from Corona to this mild crick in my neck from nodding yes to everything I've heard you say tonight. Your principles are 100% in alignment with everything that we're about as a spiritual community. So I want to encourage our Miami listeners tonight to look at the possibility of joining us tomorrow on our Facebook page, Unity on the Bay. We're going to be doing a live stream broadcast. We will not have services in person for the next couple of weeks, but you can join us on Facebook and become a participant in that manner. And it really is valuable. You know, you were talking about the importance of connection. And while in Unity, we really would never think of guilting anybody into coming to a spiritual community on a Sunday morning, we most certainly would say that there's great value in coming together in community with people who are aligned with similar thought. From Byron Katie to Course in Miracles, everything you touched on. So we would welcome people to at least consider looking at the options that are available. We have a whole wide variety of different classes, workshops, and activities that are designed to support everything that you've shared with us this evening. And before I close, I want to once again thank you for pulling through for us tonight in such a brilliant way, such a relevant way to what we and the world at large are dealing with in terms of this coronavirus. I think you've given us some wonderful keys to unleash the potential, the opportunity that lies within this for all of us. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I can't wait to meet you in person on November 7th. Again, folks, you can get tickets for that event at our website, unityonthebay.org, and we'll come together and celebrate this, hopefully on the other side of our current dilemma. Thank you so much, though, for sharing so simply, really, and profoundly what we consider to be the universal spiritual success principles of life.
My pleasure. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and thank you all for showing up when there's, you know, we're all challenged right now, but you got here. So give yourself a pat on the back, and I look forward to seeing you in November.
All right. We look forward to seeing you as well. God bless everybody.
Bye-bye.